He is a retired admiral, former Berkeley County Commission president, Mr. Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning, Rob. Great to be here.
Thank you, Bill. It's wonderful to have you.
You say the nicest things in the morning. On air. Off air, it's a different story.
Yeah, the show is actually completely scripted out well in advance of the airing of the program, and it said right there, that's what I was supposed to say about you.
and you read it the way it should have been read.
And he
Well,
did
it's so genuine.
He did such an excellent job of his phrasing and tone on the word say.
Yeah.
You say the nicest things.
You think the worst.
There was just that little kind of a question there.
Yeah. Let's also say good morning once again to the man in the Mike Height chair this morning. He is a New York Times best-selling author, retired firefighter, safety engineer, EMT, Mr. John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
And now we get into the attorney part of our program today as we welcome in the bards of the program. He is the senior member of our crew, longest tenured member here, former tax commissioner of the state of West Virginia, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning, everybody.
Good to have you here, Michael.
Great to be here.
He is the only bearded member of our crew. We have semi.
Oh, okay.
Beard, semi. Full beard. He lives.
Do you have a mirror? I mean,
No,
He lives on a road called Ambush Way.
John's the goat. Yeah.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
The name is Lawrence Schultz, attorney at law. Good morning, Larry.
It's wonderful to be here.
Via telephone, Mr. Joseph Joey Totes Ferretti.
In all my years of doing radio, coming into the studio, I have never seen a script. I thought we just made this stuff up as we went along.
Everything all of you say over these hour and a half that we have together, has been completely scripted in advance. I appreciate the fact that you guys do your lines so flawlessly.
in fact, this is AI right now.
In about 2 years, it will be.
Careful, Rob.
It's like
Don't give somebody an idea.
Oh, the idea is already there.
in Disneyland where you hear Lincoln talking, where he's standing up there and the face is moving.
You could. The world 2 years from now, 3 years from now, could be so much different than what it is now. I don't even think you can imagine what could take place.
As long as I can have Morgan Freeman's voice, I'm good.
All right, we start off with our leadoff hitter, Mr. Joseph Joey Totes Ferretti. You are on the clock, Joe.
Rob, my subject this morning concerns immigration, and it was prompted by some reading I was doing regarding the president's budget bill and the amounts of money that are going to be directed towards ICE. But I'll get to that in a minute. The immigration issue has certainly roiled certain parts of the country in terms of how it's being executed. Many of the president's supporters are cheering the efforts, going all the way back to the Republican convention when I remember those red signs being held aloft, mass deportation. A lot of enthusiasm for that, and some of that enthusiasm remains. But on the other side of the fence, there's a lot of folks who are becoming increasingly concerned about the execution of the immigration efforts by the administration. And we know about some of those concerns, the due process concerns, people being sent to faraway countries where they have no common language, no connection. Some of those things have been labeled cruel and unusual. So it's certainly a matter of debate. The polling on immigration, in February, the president was riding it pretty high. He was running at 60% in favor of the planned mass deportation efforts. Those numbers have decreased now here in July, which is the latest polling we have on immigration. The president's campaign to deport a lot of illegal immigrants. The country is looking at that at the rate of about 42 to 50% favorability. So some of his support is waning. And I think that's because, again, some of the issues with execution of the effort. The Center for Immigration Studies, some interesting numbers here, Rob. Since the beginning of the Trump administration, so going back 6 months, we have a net 2.2 million person decline in foreign-born population. 2.2 million people who were foreign born are no longer here in the country. It's estimated by this study that 1.6 million of those were illegal aliens. However, 600,000 of the foreign-born people who have left this country in the last 6 months they've left here on their own accord. And according to this agency, that is the first time since the Great Depression that we have a net negative immigration stance in the country. So Trump and his folks are being successful in carrying out this. They have got, I guess, what they wanted, which was not only people being deported, but people self-deporting. And so as we look forward here, this is what I think is worthy of some discussion this morning. We are about to see immigration enforcement on steroids. And if you look closely at the president's budget, the money for ICE alone is going from $8 billion to $28 billion. $45 billion more for infrastructure. Think about the wall, think about detention centers, think about ICE vehicles. And an additional $40 billion is going towards what we call sophisticated efforts at immigration enforcement. I'm talking about data collection. I'm talking about facial recognition, things of that nature. And all told, under the budget, we're looking at an increase in spending of $175 billion. ICE will be bigger than DEA, FBI, DOJ, and ATF combined in terms of federal spending. Think about that for a moment. So what we're going to see in the future, and this future is coming quickly, because states are lining up now for these federal dollars. They want to build detention centers. I'm sure our governors are probably looking at that. Private prison companies are lining up for these federal dollars. They want to refurbish old prisons and make them detention centers. There's enough money to go around for all of these contracts. So looking forward, my question this morning is this what we voted for, which I commonly hear from folks who defend these immigration policies, or is there a significant risk that there is now going to be a backlash on the execution of these efforts at immigration control and immigration enforcement? I think there is a significant risk of that backlash, because the amount of money going in is going to make this all-encompassing, and it's going to be in our faces, again, on steroids going forward. And I just think that perhaps there's going to be a risk of overstepping here. But that's my question this morning.
All right. Is this what we voted for? And I would ask you to confine your answers to the specific example given here by Joe in regards to how we set up with ICE. Mr. Gilstrap.
Yeah. Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do, mass deportations. The Biden administration broke everything. He turned his back on the law. He opened the floodgates. Sure, come one, come all. Whether it's 12 million, 20 million, doesn't matter. We've got millions of illegal immigrants that have flooded into the United States, and they have to go. They entered illegally. They have to go. So that's what Donald Trump ran on, and that's what he's doing. He's actually fulfilling his promises. Now, the optics sometimes aren't all that great, although, the liberal pundit Jessica Tarloff from Fox News got all a Twitter on Twitter when she witnessed what she thought was a horrific treatment of a young man in D.C. being pulled out of his car and treated badly, and she got way over her skis. It turns out that this guy has been deported 3 times and raped a 13-year-old. So she had to pull all of that back. There are some really bad people out there. We've got to hoover up a lot of folks in order to find out who the bad hombres are. I hear a lot of dancing from, like happy dancing from the Democrats about the numbers. While Trump used to have high numbers on this, now his numbers are dipping on this. I don't hear a principled discussion about why we should be keeping illegal immigrants here, other than to keep the gardener's prices low. We don't want to pay more to keep our grass cut. The fact is, these people broke the law. They need to be thrown out. And this is exactly what Trump ran on. We increased how many? 85,000 IRS agents is what Biden was going to hire, so that to make sure that American citizens were terrorized a little bit more on their taxes. Those have all gone away. So now we're hiring 85,000 more ICE agents to make sure that the Americans who are in the country are here legally. To me, that seems like an even trade. Whether or not it plays out in the polls, we'll see. We'll see whose fever dream is it turns out happy at the end.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, that's interesting. Gardeners. Like, this is just people hiring lawn trimmers.
That's all I've heard.
Yeah, well, maybe you need to talk to some people who live in a farm state, because this isn't really a farm state, as anyone who lives here knows, but there are lots of them around. Pennsylvania's full of farms, Ohio's full of farms, and you go out west and it's nothing but farms. What happens is ICE goes in with 19 vans, chases people across the crops they're trying to pick, hauls them all away, and never punishes the person who hired the illegal immigrants.
Oh, I'm all over her.
Well, they don't do it.
They should.
All right. That's a part that Mr. Trump never really made clear when he was blathering on about how we're going to do this. You know, when we deal with the drug issue, yeah, we arrest the users sometimes, but what we're really looking for is the dealers. And the people who are hiring illegal immigrants knowingly are committing federal crimes. And it would only take one van to put the owner in jail. We show up with 91 vans and take away all the workers, and the owner's like, well, boy, gee, I don't know where I'm going to get new employees. And then the cycle repeats. The other problem is this. To the extent that they're not directly dealing with the actual facts, and they're just grabbing people because of their skin color and their language problems, speaking English, that is, they're screwing it up a lot. And some of these people are being sent to horrible detention centers. The Alligator Alcatraz is one of them. And so, yeah, this is the reason the numbers are dipping is because even people who generally endorse the idea of if you came here illegally, you're going to have to pay a price or have to go, they're seeing this as a vast overreach. And Donald Trump never said, hey, we're going to arrest all the workers and never arrest the owners. He never said that during the campaign. He never said, we're going to grab American citizens and send them to El Salvador. He never said that during the campaign.
They're not American citizens.
Some of these people in El Salvador are American citizens. I'm sorry to inform you that so late about that. But, yeah, they are American citizens. So his numbers are dipping, and they're dipping for a very clear reason.
Mr. Michael Carl.
Well, I have very little to add to all the things I agree with what Mr. Gilstrap presented. And it is, I question that the real decline in support of Trump's immigration policy. I totally question that. And just give you an example. What about the illegal alien that was given the license, truck driving license in California, and I think ended up hurting people in Florida? I mean, it's just another example of what was wrong with the Biden administration's immigration policy, and I will absolutely continue to support, and millions of Americans will continue to support Trump's policy on tough immigration.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, we could spend all day on this. And for the last 78
I'm leaving at 10, so you do what you want.
Last several years, last 4, 5, 6 decades.
I wonder how long it would take Hornby to get here.
Yeah. I'll start over. For the last several decades, we've kind of worked in the middle. The last two administrations have been to the extreme. We've had the Biden and we've had the Trump. And folks tend to argue one against the other. I think Biden had too relaxed a open border policy. I think Trump has been overly extreme in the approach he's taken. We go back for several years, and we did not have these two extremes. We worked very, very, very well. The economy, I think, is a factor in this. The optics is a big factor, but the economy. It's not just the gardeners, John. It's the farm laborers, as Larry mentioned. It's a processing plant. It's the service personnel in hotels. It's the service industry as a whole. These folks have left. These companies are having trouble finding replacements. It's going to come back and hit our pocketbook, our individual pocketbooks. There's other aspects as well. A lot of our professional folks that foreign born are leaving the country because they're afraid if it happened to the farm labor, it could happen to them as well. We're losing some of our brain drain. We're having brain drain to places like Europe, Northern Europe, even China, several other places, because folks are afraid to stay in the country with what they're seeing with this immigration policy. The financing that that has been mentioned by Joe, the amount of money going into to the ICE, the Border Patrol, it has to come from somewhere. You've heard me mention before the basic science. I see that National Science Foundation budget's been reduced by 75%. NIH, the budget's been reduced by 40%. EPA air quality research, this is research, been reduced by 55%. NOAA's budget been cut in half for the research. These things are going to come back and bite us. Industry does not do basic research. They do applied research. These things are going to bite us sometime in the future. And the other thing that I find troublesome with all the discussion, we use individual examples. We saw this situation of the example just used. Someone in California came over to Florida. Yes, that's true. But there are individual examples all over. You can pull out an individual example to make any case you want. There's a lot of individual examples that are American-born citizens. I think we're on a slippery slope here, and I do think that the optics are going to play a role in the next election. So we'll see what happens.
Mr. Gilstrap, you have been singled out a couple different times by Mr. Schultz and Mr. Stubblefield.
Yes. This is not about one extreme versus the other. We're not talking about a pendulum swing right here. We're talking about fixing something that was broken. The whole fire service thing has shaped pretty much my whole philosophy. When something is burning, you put it out, and you don't put it partially out, you put it all the way out. And in this case, the fire is the 20 million, or whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. We know that it's millions of illegal aliens who were let in here, some of whom are bad, some of them are not bad. They're not bad people, they're just here illegally. And the Trump administration is dedicated, right or wrong, they're dedicated to deporting them. That's their job. So, and that's what they're doing. And you do that by doing it. I mean, there's no middle ground. It's not the fact that whether or not he's a truck driver or anything else. And the Democrat, this is the other part I don't understand. If in fact we're making farm goods a little bit more expensive, if whatever, the Democrats have been screaming that they want to have better wages, they want to raise the minimum wage. We talked about a living wage forever, and what's keeping the living wage down is the slave labor that we're getting out in these cornfields and in the wherever it is. It's the illegal immigrants. It's this illegal labor that is keeping these costs down. So if you want to get your wish, then go ahead and get rid of the slave labor, right? Get rid of the illegal immigrants, not the legal ones. And you all are really good at conflating legal and illegal. It's an entirely different group. We don't see legal immigrants self-deporting. Legal immigrants are very happy staying here. It's the illegal ones who are self-deporting because they don't want to go to Alcatraz.
We are seeing legal immigrants get snatched off the street by ICE and deported wrongfully and not given a court hearing.
One-off.
It's going on.
One off, two off, here and there, yeah. Okay, I'm not going to say it's a perfect
Hundreds
system.
of thousands.
You're making that up.
You are making that up.
And you guys have made up your whole...
Cite a legitimate source for that information.
Well, they haven't had hearings for crying out loud. It's going to be kind of hard.
What
If
about
you're
the-
here
what about the
illegally,
media?
why do you get a hearing?
How
if
do
you're-
you know it?
If we know that you're here illegally, hard stop. Why do you need a hearing? That's what
Well, if we know you committed the crime, why do you get a trial? It's called due process of law for crying out loud. It's a due process of law.
If there's somebody trespassing in my house at midnight, he gets to stay in my living room until
No.
a judge says he has to leave.
No, until you call the police and they arrest him for being in your living room.
But he gets to stay in the living room until he's gone.
Well,
We're not. I'm not.
he's gonna. I mean,
We're deporting him. We're not charging him with a crime. We're deporting him.
Okay, you're still entitled to due process of law, just like in a car accident case that
If
doesn't
you're a
involve
citizen
crime.
of the United States.
Yeah, and that's the question.
That's madness.
That's the question. You got to prove it.
Well,
And they're not proving it; they're just saying it. Look at that brown skin; he's got to be an
And
illegal.
Now, that's the race card for God's sake.
99% of
Yeah.
these cases is absolutely crystal clear that they're illegal.
I don't think
then
that's
just
right.
go ahead and
That's
have the
not
hearings
anywhere
and prove
close.
it.
Not even close.
Just prove it. That's all I'm saying.
Joe, you stirred up a hornet's nest here this morning. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, a couple points. Some of the stats I did cite, 600,000 foreign-born legal residents have left the country in the last 6 months. That is according to the Center for Immigration Studies. They are a restrictive immigration group. They have an incentive not to screw with these numbers, and that's the numbers. People are leaving even though they are legally here. And I think that's going to have some repercussions down the road if that continues. The big question I have here, I have two questions. Number one, all this money going towards the efforts to deport people, you notice that we're not discussing any money going to immigration courts, immigration judges, a lot of them who have been fired in the last 6 months. We are not setting up a system to process these people. And the fear I have and the backlash that may arise is that these detention centers may become internment camps because we don't have the infrastructure to process these people and to give them the due process that the law affords them. So that is a concern going forward, is that the money's going towards the people in the streets who are apprehending folks, but it's not going towards the back-end system to process them humanely. And secondly, I think we're changing our thinking in this country about immigration. David Frum, and real quick, the writer for The Atlantic said that immigration, you got to think of it like rain. When it's too much, you get flooding and you get bad results. And when it's too little, things dry up and die. So at some point, we've got to come to an immigration policy that makes sense for this country, because we do need people to come into this country and work. We've talked about low birth rates in the past. Immigration is the answer to that. So I want to see some balance here. Otherwise, the administration is setting itself up for a backlash, and the problem is going to be then they're going to have trouble enforcing what they want to do, even if they have these billions of dollars committed to the effort.
Once the spigot is turned off here, it would be good for Congress to actually consider some immigration reform and find a way to make it so that it doesn't take 20 years to become a citizen once you legally cross the border. If we could find a way to streamline that process and make it easier to become a citizen, that would benefit this entire problem for those who wish to come here legally. Well, that's the way to get it started, Joe. The blood pressure is up in the room. We'll calm it down during the commercial break when the arguing will become filled with expletives because the mics are off. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg And TV10, Bill Stubblefield is on the clock next. Say good morning to the remaining co-hosts on the program as we start our second hour. He is a New York Times best-selling author, Mr. John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
Senior member of our Crew Reform and Tax Commission of the state of West Virginia, Michael Carl.
Good morning.
Attorney at law, Lauren Schultz, who lives on a road called Ambush. Good morning, sir.
Great to be here.
And with issue number 2, retired Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Rob, during the campaign, President Trump, one of his issues was cleaning up the vermin-infested cities that we have, and he had very little good to say about the cities. He was targeting a lot of the cities under Democratic mayorship. And he's followed through recently on targeting Washington, D.C. It's kind of interesting with Washington, D.C. It does not lead the nation in violent crime. It's high, but it does not lead the nation. It's also, if you look at the trend, the number of violent crimes and number of aggravated assaults have gone down substantially, as much as 23% in the last year. But that was not any reason. The crime rate going down was no reason for President Trump not to go ahead and target Washington, D.C. again, even though they did not lead the nation in crime rate. He called out to governors to provide National Guard to literally take over the state, take over the city, with the guys that would be assisting the police. But initially, he was going to actually take over control of the police. That Bondi's Attorney General subsequently had to back off on that due to a court ruling. But in the face of the request of President Trump, Governor Marcy sent 3 to 4. Governor Marcy was the very first to respond of any of the governors. They sent 300 to 400 National Guard, substantially more than any other state. And in making his decision, Governor Marcy said, West Virginia is proud to stand with President Trump in his effort to restore pride and beauty to our nation's capital. Other governors have, or some governors have responded, mostly in the red states. Governor of Vermont said he declined to send troops because he does not view enforcement of domestic law as a proper use of the National Guard. Our National Guard mission statement says, we achieve combat readiness and preparedness and strive to be a highly trained and well-equipped organization for our national defense. This has created quite a bit of stir, both pro and con. Informal polls suggest that the majority of West Virginians do not agree with the governor's position of sending the National Guard. But again, that's an informal poll. One commentator has stated, one well-recognized commentator said, our National Guard members are too valuable, too important to a state to be dispatched on what amounts to be a vainglorious political stunt. And before I go to the question, there's also some concern whether or not this is a preamble to going to other states. D.C. is an easy target because D.C. does not have the autonomy the states have. But recently, the vice president and much more recently, the president themselves has said this will probably be the start of occupying other cities. The term occupying is kind of frightening in its own right. There's two questions. Was the governor a political stunt in sending the guards there? And second, is this a movement toward a police state, which a lot of folks are concerned it might be?
And I will point out that there is a lawsuit that was filed in West Virginia in Charleston by the West Virginia Citizen Action Group yesterday at 4:13 p.m., and it named Governor Patrick Morrisey and Major General James Seward of the Office of the Adjutant General, West Virginia Military Authority, in which they are seeking to stop this action of the West Virginia National Guard partaking in this. So let's begin with the attorneys in the room first, and I'll go on the telephone to Joe Ferretti.
Well, somebody needs to go to Ohio County and Marion County and ask those folks what they think about our National Guardsmen being dispatched to D.C. rather than having boots on the ground to assist those poor folks deal with the flooding that caused untold property damage and fatalities. Those folks are struggling because of the feeble state response and the delayed FEMA response, which took over a month for money and resources to be surged into those areas to help those folks. But here we got a governor who, to no end, wants to please the president and send 300 to 400 of our guardsmen to D.C. I was critical when Jim Justice sent 50 of our guardsmen to Texas to assist Texas in border security. And I am even more miffed at the fact that our current governor sees fit to take our state resources and send these folks who are weekend warriors, who have jobs, who have families. No, we got to pack them up and send them to D.C. so they can guard the Lincoln Memorial. It makes no sense to me. It is a political stunt. And frankly, I don't see how he escapes criticism for doing this.
Mr. Carl.
Well, it's real simple why this is a correct action that's been taken. Now, I'm not going to deny that there's a prospect that there's some political implications from the governor's on his part. But just keep in mind, we're talking about the National Guard and the nation's capital. So it's clearly legally legitimate and needed. I mean, for a long way back, I lived in D.C. for a while, and this so-called drop in violent crime it's just a statistical misreading. The violent on the street crime had exploded in D.C. It has always been kind of bad, but it was really bad in the last few years, and it's fortunately a little bit of decline, but there's an absolute need for what's been done, and it is the National Guard and the nation's capital.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, part of the national guarding that the National Guard is required to do is things like flood protection that Joe was talking about, and we've pretty much just blown that off. We're also in the middle of hurricane season, you may recall. Just Hurricane Aaron just kind of skirted off the coast. I think they abandoned, they kicked everybody out of the Outer Banks, all the visitors, just before that hit. I don't know how bad it turned out to be, but the North Carolina National Guard could be in ocean in the Outer Banks at any time. Having said all that, the real problem to me is Donald Trump told us on January 6th that he could not call out. Not just for some crime thing. He could not call out the National Guard in D.C. He said, I can't do it. They were calling on him. He said, I can't do it. Now he says, because that violence, that attack on police officers, that attack on the Congress of the United States with Josh Hawley running away down the hall, all of that was happening under his watch, and he let it happen and never called him out. Now, all of a sudden, when some reports show that violent crime is at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C., he calls him out to say, and really what I'm getting to is this is another Jeffrey Epstein distraction. This is a way to get people whipped up and talking about something other than that big pile of documents that they're still trying to hide. Go ahead and let that stuff out, and guess what? All of a sudden, Donald Trump's going to have problems that no amount of National Guardsmen can save him from.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Oh, Lordy. Okay, just let that one go. Washington is a dangerous place. I used to work there. It's always been a dangerous place. The 30-year low is horse hockey.
Prove it.
The
It's a lie.
Prove it.
You can't say that, Mike, because it's the numbers. Yeah.
Those
The
were
numbers-
Justice Department stats.
all right. We know that there are those. I won't get into statistics, but we know from the police union that there have been complaints for years that those statistics have been cooked. That
Underreported.
There have been pressures for shootings to be reported as something other than shootings. There are all kinds of ways to do this. This has been done for years, by the way. This has been done in counties in Virginia where I ran fire. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that politicians have done for years. It's not unique to Washington, but I digress. There are two parts to this question. We're talking about the National Guard. There's two parts to this question. Washington needs to have additional protection. They have decided after the George Floyd incident that they decided that they're just not going to enforce laws anymore. And because when you don't enforce laws, people get hit over the head a lot more, people get more carjackings, and people die in the street. That's bad for everything. You can't eat al fresco on the sidewalk without people coming up and harassing you. We've all seen the videos of this, and we have politicians saying that you should do that. If somebody's wearing a MAGA hat, you have to make sure that you come up and yell at them. You have to make this. It's kind of an out of control zeitgeist that's going on in Washington. So yes, I think we need to start enforcing laws. That's one of the things. You're going to have laws. You should enforce them. So doubling down on law enforcement is part of this question. I think, yes, it should be done. There has been such a drain on the Metropolitan Police Force, they have to be backed up by another police force. So therefore, I think assigning the FBI police and the Secret Service police and the DEA police, all these different agencies have their police forces, I think that assigning them, detailing them over to the Metropolitan Police, I think is a great idea. If they want to put the D.C. National Guard as backup in there, fine, go for it. They have one. I have problems when we start sending the West Virginia National Guard in to do routine police work. First of all, soldiers are not policemen, but that's not really their job. The job of the National Guard is not to make arrests. The job of the National Guard is to be there and just sort of be a force to... Okay, an intimidating force, I guess, is as good a job as any. They're not carrying loaded weapons. It's not that kind of a force. Is it a political stunt? Is Morrissey sucking up to the president? I don't know his heart, so it looks like it to me. It doesn't make sense to me why we should be sending people, pulling them away from their jobs in West Virginia and sending them for their deployment into D.C. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Does it represent the beginning of a police state? No, I don't see that at all.
Mr. Stubblefield, back to you.
Supposedly, and a lot of this is anecdotal information, we're not seeing the statistics, the troops, the National Guard, have not been distributed in those areas of the city where there's crime rate. They spend a lot of time around the National Mall, Union Station, and the like. So what's the purpose? I don't know. I suspect there is some political gamesmanship here.
All right, issue number 3, and for that, in the Mike Height seat this week, Mr. John Gilstrap.
I think one of the great gifts to the Trump administration is the fact that he lost the 2020 election. After Letitia James in the 20-teens, whenever she was elected to be the DEA in New York, on the platform of finding something to sue Trump for and to hurt him, didn't know what it was yet, and then she found this mortgage fraud scam. And then she found the judge that was willing to declare him guilty of fraud before the trial started, Judge Engoron. And this was the beginning of preparing to tarnish Trump. We already went through Russiagate to hurt his presidency. And he survived all of that. We went through the first of the impeachment trials to try to hurt his presidency. He survived that. And then we go through the ridiculous raid on his house. We went through the ridiculous made-up crimes. And now we've had 4 years for the swamp to reveal itself. And in the 4 years that what's supposed to happen in a case like this is you destroy the guy, and when Engoron hit Trump with a $500 million fine, for a civil case in which no one was hurt. Letitia James comes out and says, well, if he can't pay it, if he doesn't go to pay it, we're just going to get rid of his buildings. We're going to really hurt this guy. So now, after 4 years of seeing what a Green New Deal life really looks like, seeing what life under Democrat control really looks like under a president who doesn't know where he is or can't spell his own name, but thank God he has an auto pen. After all of that, the $500 million settlement gets thrown out. Trump wins, and he wins, and he wins, and he wins. He can't fire federal employees, the Democrats say. Well, yeah, it turns out he can. At every step along the way, what we have seen is that Trump has exposed the swamp, or the swamp has exposed themselves, in all fairness. So what has happened by him losing in 2020 and then winning in 2024, and now with the throwing out of this of the denial of this $500 million settlement, what we have finally seen in this 4-year hiatus, despite all of the efforts of the Democrats to go outside the Constitution to get their own way, what we find is that the rule of law in the end actually works if you can spend $120 million in legal fees to make it so.
What is your question for the panel to consider, sir?
Don't we all agree that I'm right?
All right, Joe Ferretti, do you agree that John Gilstrap is right? Joe Ferretti, you go first.
Well, John, I'll take issue with you're characterizing this. If I'm unfair about this, let me know. But I think you're characterizing this as an exoneration of Donald Trump, and the decision that came out of the New York Appeals Court yesterday is anything but an exoneration.
It's a spanking of the judge.
Well, I'm sorry?
I said it's a spanking of the judge.
Well, judges are reviewed all the time, and sometimes they're reversed. And the issues here there's two issues. The case was about seeking injunctive relief against the Trump organization for how they were conducting business, their corporate culture of overstating the value of their assets to get favorable loans and insurance rates. The other aspect of the case was called disgorgement, so that if you're found guilty of this kind of fraudulent behavior, the judge in his discretion can order a monetary fine. And we know, as you said, that fine was like a $500 million fine. Now, what happened yesterday in the New York courts was what was upheld was the finding, the trial verdict, if you will, that the Trump organization did engage in fraud. The injunctive relief that the judge ordered, which was the Trump organization cannot do business in the state of New York for a number of years, stands. That prohibition, that penalty stands. What did not stand was the disgorgement of the profits that the judge declared were earned through the fraudulent activity. The appeals court found that disgorgement penalty to be too high and to violate the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment and prohibits civil penalties that are way out of bounds. So that is what has been forgiven, and that's on appeal. But the finding of fraud by the Trump organization, his sons, his accountant, who I think is still in Rikers, that stands. So this is not an exoneration. It's simply a determination by the appeals court that the trial court judge went too far in taking away $500 million. We'll see what happens on appeal.
Joe, I'm going to assume that means no, you don't agree John is right.
Well, I think John's trying to characterize this as an exoneration, that Trump wins. I don't think being found guilty of fraud and being told you can't do business in your home state is a win.
Mr. Carl.
Well, first of all, I completely agree with John's description of the situation, and I just think $500 million fine is outrageous, and I'm so glad that even a New York appellate judge would recognize that it is ridiculous, and therefore the system still works, and obviously all these issues are still open for further appeal, and we'll see what happens. But it does add confidence. It gives me confidence that the system is working and would not allow such an outrageous imposition of a penalty.
Larry?
Yes. In order to sort this out just a little bit, if we use the word guilty of fraud, that kind of suggests that it's a criminal matter. This is a civil matter. They had a motion for summary judgment, which anybody who's been around this will know what that is. Before a jury was impaneled in the case, they had a motion for summary judgment that found, yes, indeed, he had committed civil fraud. Not a crime, but still, unless you're Donald Trump, not a real mark of honor on your career. One of the aspects of this was he filled out documents, and his organization signed documents and submitted documents to insurance companies and banks and others, claiming that the Trump Tower was 33,000 square feet when in fact it's 11,000 square feet. 3 times the size of what it actually is. Now, eventually they paid back all the loans, but this is a civil matter. They had a motion for summary judgment, and the evidence was so clear that the judge found, without bringing in a jury, that there was no way he could escape the label civil fraud. And so he found that there was a civil fraud. All this is about is the penalty. And 5 appellate court judges wrote 300 pages of decisions and came to an agreement on one thing for sure, and that is that the $500 million was excessive. Now, I think it's possible that the New York Supreme Court, or whatever the proper term for that is in New York, could overturn that and say, yeah, the fine was excessive, and so we're going to make it $250. It's a civil case.
Bill, you got 1 minute?
Yeah, the judges upheld his liability and tossed a penalty so the case could move forward to further appellate review. As far as exoneration, you mentioned a couple of others, Florida, Georgia, D.C. He was not exonerated. When Trump was elected president, they dropped the case because there was no way the Attorney General was going to pursue against their own boss. So I don't see that any of these exoneration.
Mr. Gilstrap, the room seems to not agree with you.
Well, I sort of anticipated that would be the case.
You did say to me in the text you were going to get beaten up today.
Yeah. Dropping a case is almost, to me, sort of the same as exoneration. I think that nobody anticipated that Trump would go out in front of the press every day and be as aggressive in, look at what they're doing to me. Engoron tried to stop him from talking. This is a master class in how to turn your enemies into fools.
I think this is a master class.
Not this. Trump's handling it.
Here's the problem with how I see this entire case from its basis, which is the exaggeration of the size of Trump Tower, 33,000 feet when it was actually 11 feet. And this is the reason why women never trust men's descriptions of anything. Right there. It's the entire reason. Right there. Men have no idea what the actual size is. We just think it's bigger than it really is. Hey, we're back with the final segment. Coming up, Larry Schultz is on the clock next. We get to the home stretch of the Friday Five. We welcome back our co-hosts on the program via telephone, Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti, attorney at law. Good morning again, Joe.
Good morning, everybody.
New York Times best-selling author John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
Former tax commissioner of the state of West Virginia, senior member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning.
He is a retired admiral, former Berkeley County Commission president, smiling like a butcher's dog, Bill Stubblefield.
A butcher's dog. Good morning, Rob.
And with issue number 4, attorney at law, Lawrence Schultz.
Yeah, my question is, what is West Virginia's idea, if any, to actually improve public education in this state? I know that we recently made a decision regarding vaccinations that will expose children with fragile immune systems to diseases carried by their unvaccinated classmates, but that doesn't really have anything to do with making us a better education state. So is there a plan to find the funds to hire more and better certified teachers and staff? Why or why not?
You don't know how, where, or when Larry will find a way to weave a Republican insult into anything that he says.
But he didn't mention Trump.
He didn't mention Trump on this one, but it's implied.
Well, perhaps their plan is to have the West Virginia National Guard go to the school.
There you go.
Maybe that's going to be it. Who knows? It depends what happens in the Epstein case, what result we're going to get.
You get kids to read the Epstein files.
There you go.
In an effort to seem progressive, Republicans have said that drag queens reading in schools will not have to be vaccinated. So they're
Isn't
making
that special?
A little sliding some on that one. Mr. Stubblefield, you go first.
I was afraid you were going to ask me to go first. I was keeping my head down low. Maybe you'd go to some of the others. We have a problem with the school system. Everybody, I think, acknowledges it. Our test scores acknowledge it, even though I'm proud to note that there's been some improvement. So this assist in the first 3 grades, having additional teachers, hopefully that's going to address some of our problems. This is a point that Mike Hornby and I have talked about quite a bit off air. And first, I want to compliment Mike. He has taken the education aspect very, very, very serious. He's done his homework. He's trying to understand the problem, and I think. And I applaud Mike for that. However, I think that the legislators, instead of fighting with the State Board of Education, which they really have no authority right now, they may have, but in the future, but they don't have right now. The legislators do have the authority to take an in-depth examination of our school system to see where we fall short, where we can actually make some improvement. They tend not to want to do that. They tend to do it in bite-sized pieces instead of taking an integrated, more comprehensive examination or thorough review. They look at the bits and pieces, and the bits and pieces are invariably those that are receiving more visibility at that point in time. I'm not sure you're going to solve the education problem by looking at it in bite-sized pieces. You've got to have a comprehensive review, and Mike tells me they've done that in parts. I've not seen the results of it.
Mr. Gilstrap.
No, I don't think we have a plan. I think the education system, and I can't speak to West Virginia, but locally I know a lot of teachers, and I've talked to them. There are really systemic problems. Some of them are as specific as, excuse me, one very good friend of mine is going to quit because she's a relatively new teacher, and she says all of the bad kids go to her and all of the good kids go to the experienced teachers. So, so that's organic within the school. We don't say out loud the stuff that we all know is true, and that is we spend too much time on the kids who don't want to be in school. That's basically what the problem is. We have a truancy issue. We have a discipline issue for the kids who are in class, and money is not the issue. It's not. Everybody wants to pay teachers more. Well-paid teachers are happier, but basic marketing classes tell you that money is not the solution to the problem in and of itself. Not that they shouldn't be paid more. I'm not arguing against that. Education, I don't know about you guys, but I learned to read at home. I don't learn to read in a classroom. You learn to read at home. You learn how to work through the math problems or the arithmetic problems at home. You get the basics in the classroom, but you work it out at home with your parents and your brothers and your sisters, and you do it by making sure that you get to school. It's a family problem that we have in West Virginia. It's not a school problem that we have in West Virginia. And if we can somehow concentrate on the kids who want to be in the classroom, who come from a background where the education is supported, and build on that basis. And I don't have a solution for the other side of this issue. I'm not saying that we turn our backs on the population of miscreant children, but from what I understand, we've had so many people in here talking about how much time the discipline issues take away from classroom teaching. If we can solve that problem and just pay attention to the kids who want to learn, we will see test scores go up, if only because the kids who are taking the tests are the ones who actually want to be learning. I don't have the solution to the problem, and I'm not sure that given those circumstances, especially when we extend out to where people have, we talked about, I forget who was sitting in this seat, kids are having to take an hour hour-and-a-half bus ride to and from school down in the belly of West Virginia, where they keep closing high schools. And that's a real problem. I mean, who wants to do that? It's so much easier to not go to school, even though the government says you have to. Until we solve the basic systemic issues in West Virginia, we're going to continue to have an education problem.
Michael Carr.
Well, it's been a long time that the West Virginia public education system has been not great, and I attribute most of that to the teachers union influence and their their self interest and not focusing on real good public education. But now politically, the other side has taken control, so it's going to still there's still a lot of improvement needed, and I can't add much to what's already been said. We absolutely have a lot of improvement to be made in public education in West Virginia, and I don't know that these latest developments are going in that right direction.
Joe Ferretti.
Well, John, you're right. A lot of learning occurs at home. Unfortunately, home life for many West Virginia kids is not conducive to that, and it's a cultural issue. It's not unique to West Virginia. It extends beyond our state borders. It's found throughout Appalachia. It's found throughout the country, frankly. There are cultural impediments to learning, and a lot of these kids don't get the guidance and discipline at home to stick to their studies. And I've seen it. Again, I say this often. I'm a consumer of both private and public education in the Eastern Panhandle, and I've seen the differences. They are stark. Just go to a parent-teacher conference night in a public school, and you will find very few parents there. Go to a private school when there's parent-teacher conferences, and there's a line out the door waiting to talk to teachers. I don't know how you deal with that. It would take generations to fix that problem. But I think in terms of I'm heartened by, and I'll be a little bit of an optimist, I'm heartened by Dr. Sachs coming in saying that he's got almost all of his teachers hired. I'm heartened to hear that we've got school bus drivers to get these kids back and forth to school. And I'm heartened by the recent test results that show slight improvement. We're going in the right direction. Whether it's a trend or not, we'll see. But in terms of the state response to education, I am concerned still about the resources. Hope Scholarship is going to continue to eat up more and more of the state budget as public schools are closing and as less money is going to the public schools. So that's an equation that is not going to work in favor of improving public schools.
Back to you, Larry.
Yes. Lots of kids don't have a parent at home they can learn to read from. Plain and simple. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's because they went to the same worn out, broken down schools that the kids themselves are going to, and they didn't learn how to read either. And so part of public education is to make it possible for a kid who has no help from home to still become a competent reader, a competent mathematician, a competent understander of social stuff like history and English. It's not an easy thing. It's expensive. We understand that it costs more money to build a road up the mountainside than it does to build a road on flat ground. It costs more money to build a road in northern Pennsylvania where the weather will sometimes take you to 25 below zero than it does in the middle of the country where all the temperatures are more. But we somehow don't understand that when we've had this historic problem, it's going to cost us not just as much as everybody else per student, but even more. And if we do not, as a state, devote ourselves to that through our elected representatives and the allocation of funding, then we are never, ever going to get there. I've told this story before. Had a family member who was a guidance counselor in Berkeley Springs in the early 2000s. She got an offer and took a job in Hancock, which is like about from downtown Berkeley Springs, about 7 miles away, but it's in a different state called Maryland. And her pay increased by 40%. 40%. What person? I mean, you'd wonder about that person's education if they didn't take that job. You'd say, well, who taught her math, right? And so, as much as she hated to leave the school system she'd graduated from, she had to. She just couldn't go on with it any longer. And so, if you don't, so we have a special problem here because there's other states everywhere and they all pay more money. But even in the center of the state, I mean, people are moving to the edges of the state and moving out of state because they can't even afford to pay off their own student loans that made them a teacher in the first place. We've got to compete on salaries, and we're not even close.
Issue number 5. For that, we go to Michael Carl.
This is a do you agree point. I suggest that the only truly effective resolution of Russia's ongoing attack on Ukraine is one that requires its full concurrent surrender of the Ukrainian territory that is hostilely grabbed in recent years, and a highly credible U.S. Western European permanent threat to Russia's own territory and economy. What do you think?
Will that include a presence within the Ukrainian borders, Mike?
It could, but that could require that. But a U.S. presence or European, Western Europe country presence
Or NATO.
NATO, right.
All right, Joe Ferretti, we begin with you via telephone.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. This is the problem I have with the current administration. They're great at the production. We'll go meet the North Korean president, and nothing comes of that. We go meet President Putin, and nothing comes of that. It's all about the production and show. Yeah, we're doing something about this. I'm going to be a leader, and we're going to take the bull by the horns, and then we get nowhere. This president doesn't seem to understand leverage. You get Netanyahu to agree to handle Gaza appropriately by getting him to make commitments before you go bomb Iran. You get Putin to the table to bargain legitimately by not taking off the table NATO involvement for Ukraine or European Union involvement for Ukraine. You don't take that off the table before the meeting. This guy doesn't understand leverage. And so we end up with a lot of show and nothing resulting from the effort. And I think that, Mike, you're right. There has to be a concerted effort between this country and the countries in Europe to put the boot to this guy and tell him that, you're not going to get all this territory, you're not going to get everything you want, or there's going to be repercussions. And so far, I haven't seen or heard of them.
Mr. Gilstrap.
For the life of me, I can't figure out why Putin would do that, or would give up the territory that he's gained. He's paid with a lot of blood, a lot of money, a lot of munitions, and from what I can tell, he believes that is his. We gave him Crimea back in 2013, I think it was, without firing a shot. We can try to force him to do all kinds of things, and all that will do is cost a lot more blood and a lot more money. There's only so much Ukrainian blood that I think the Americans should be willing to shed. This is this whole neocon mindset that we have about Ukraine. Putin is a bad man. Stipulate to that. Zelensky is a good wartime leader. I'll stipulate to that. He's a flawed character, but ultimately it's about blood and destruction and what can ultimately happen in the end. I do not think Putin is going to cave. We cannot let Ukraine join NATO. I think that's a non-starter. That's why this whole thing started, was because Putin was afraid that Ukraine was going to become a member of NATO. It'd be lovely if he give up everything, walk away, and just capitulate. But he's not going to do it.
It is usually Mike Carl calling the person to his side a neocon. Today I get the feeling Mr. Gilstrap is implying that you are a neocon, Mr. Carl.
Well, the point is that's why the second part of my point was that to actually take action that results in a clear threat to Russia, not just to their their land but to their economy.
I think Putin feels a noose around his neck, and he should.
He needs to feel a noose that's tight enough that he responds and gives back what he's improperly taken. And because that second facet has never been part of Trump's dealing, which I agree was flawed and insufficient, that's why we have the problem. But my statement was that's what we need to do, and that's what Trump needs to do.
Would that include American troops?
It might. It might, yes.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Putin's personal life. He may be into nooses around his neck, for all I know, real tight. Bill?
Well, it's interesting that we have three parties here. Two of the three parties have their position well staked out. You know exactly what it is. John, I think, characterized Putin very well. I don't think Putin's going to agree with this at all. In fact, he'll not agree with any part of it. The European Union are now standing in lockstep more than they have probably since the Second World War. They are a united front because they see the danger of Russia being on the backyard or back door. The unknown here, it's not an unknown, but it's the United States. We do not have a well-established policy. We vacillate. We vacillated with Biden. We're vacillating even more with Trump. So I don't think we're doing anybody any good. We're not putting the noose, as Mike Carl would say, we're not tightening the noose on Trump. Without some sort of sanctions, we can wish all we want, but Putin is not going to back down. He's not going to back off. He's going to continue his very aggressive approach. He says he needs the Donetsk province, whatever that is. He'd like to have that. Ukraine cannot give that up because, for a couple of reasons, the natural resources, but the big reason is the fortified cities reside on the border of that. If Ukraine gives this up, it's going to be a wide open highway for Putin to go throughout the rest of Ukraine. So that is a non-starter, and I hope the U.S. realizes it's a non-starter. They cannot give that up. But I just wish the U.S. Obviously, I wish the U.S. would take a stronger position against Putin and voice of Ukraine. But we do need to establish a permanency of what action we're taking, and I don't see that has not happened yet.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, the first question that occurs to me is, we were told this war would be over day one of Donald Trump's presidency. As you might know, that was 7 months ago, or 6 months ago.
7.
Yeah. So was it a lie? Was it just a flat lie?
Hyperbole.
Or is he really that stupid?
Hyperbole.
No. That's just a big word for lie. He was bragging about something that he didn't understand. And it turns out it wasn't even close. The other problem is this. If you do not, and I do tend to agree, Russia's got to give it all up. If you do not come up with a bill of sanctions right now, economic sanctions, geez, we're slapping Brazil around. We're slapping Mexico and Canada around. We can't do something financial to hurt Russia. They're not a particularly prosperous country for as big as they are and as powerful as they are. They spend an awful lot of money on their military. We need to put the screws to them on this and make sure that Putin gets recognized by his people as the person who caused their country to crash.
Hey, before you go, we're just about out of time. Mike, the final minute goes back to you.
The fact, I have to say I agree with what Larry just said.
Stop the show now.
Rare event. I mean, Trump did not understand the nature of this problem. It's not economic. It's not business. You know, he knows that stuff. But this is different, and he didn't understand it, and he has to tighten up.
Good final thought there. And on that note, get your final thoughts together. You've got 8 seconds apiece. Final thoughts, 8 seconds apiece. We start on the phone with Joe. Go.
Congratulations to Tyson Bagent on a great contract, well earned.
Mr. Lawrence Schultz.
The last segment with Mr. Carl shows that, in fact, I'm a uniter, not a divider.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, I do not know how the PEIA discussion's coming out, but I want to give the governor credit for taking it head on and trying to fix it.
Mr. Carl.
My Cards are still struggling for a wild card, but the good news is they host the Pirates 4 times next week.
Mr. Gilstrap, you have no time. Sorry. The Dave Ramsey Show is coming up next. This is Talk Radio, WRR Martinsburg and TV 10. We'll talk to you again in 70 short hours.